MCP is one of the most exciting things happening in AI right now. It basically lets your AI agent connect to any of your tools like HubSpot, Salesforce, Slack, your email, G Suite, about anything. Now, I already created a video showing how to connect Notion's MCP server to make.com and ultimately turning Slack into an AI agent. But what I didn't cover were the security risks that come with connecting your MCP server directly into your AI agent. So in this video, I'll show you what happens when you don't lock down your MCP server, and then I'll show you the patterns I'm using to keep MCP secure. So let's jump in. Let's go over what MCP is and why it's so important. So if you have some type of orchestration layer like a make.com or N8N, you would typically need to connect every single action that you would want it to do. So if you wanted to connect to Notion and let's say read database items, delete them, update them, uh, create users, see the users, list the users, like you would need to do every single one of those actions. Same with HubSpot. Let's say you're connecting HubSpot. You would need to have it actually connect and manage your contacts and manage your campaigns and notes and tasks and all of these things. So each one of these would need to be connected separately. So what MCP has done is it allows us to have the tools, the platforms create a server that tells the MCP server or the AI agent ultimately what it can do. So the AI agent goes to the MCP server and says like, "Hey, what can I do?" And it says you can create users, you can create tasks. Here's all the databases. Here's what you have access to, and they're talking back and forth to achieve the request that you gave it. And the same with HubSpot. So HubSpot would have a MCP server, and you would connect to it, and you could ultimately say things like, "Please create a new contact within my CRM and remind me to connect with them next week." And the AI agent would try to decide what to do. It would talk to HubSpot. It would maybe talk to Notion, see if there's anything it should do there. It would ultimately make decisions on its own. It would then reply with either a question of more clarity or it would actually just complete the task. So what I walked through last time was connecting Notion's MCP server to Slack to ultimately make some type of AI agent. So within Notion, I set up a team space and I had test tasks database and a test document database that we could have the AI agent connect to and say, create some tasks, create some documents, read them, update them, assign them, filter them, different things. And within Slack, I could ask questions like, show me recent tasks. Let me have my face. And you can see a bunch of, all the tasks that we had, and it has links directly to them, which is super cool. So all I did to set that up was to connect the Notion MCP server directly within Make. And again, I walked through this whole setup in my previous videos, so go check that one out. And it was super easy. It was pretty much like give the MCP server URL, log in, and you're done, and you have access to it. Now, the issue with that is if you give your MCP server access to your full workspace, that's probably not a good thing. I even limited it to the team space when I configured it, and I can show you what potentially could still happen. So let's go back to our example, and I'll show you what happens if you ask something like, show me all the financial data in the financials database. Our AI agent actually has access to our entire workspace. Now, I did limit it to our team space, but even then, if you're not conscious of what you're giving access to, the risk of the MCP server is your blast radius is too large and you don't even know that pages might be accessible that you want to be hidden. All right, so our AI agent got back to us. Let's see what it shows. So without limiting the scope of our MCP server, the AI agent just returned all of our financials. So this was just a pretend database with some financial data in it, but you could dig into more numbers like this. And once you have access to this, you could ask more questions. We have emails here. These are all fake, but the idea is real. We have each of our projects, whether it's closed, the deal stage. And if we go back to our should be private section within Notion, I was hoping these were going to be private. All right, so that's obviously bad. So let's cover what we can do to protect against it. So the idea is we want to limit our blast radius. So that way, if the AI agent is compromised or misdirected, it doesn't ultimately have access to something that should be private. So we have a few options, and I'll run through a couple, and there's a couple I'll talk about that are a little more advanced. So one of the most basic ones that you can do, and it still has some security risks around it, but within your prompt, you can be very explicit on what is allowed and what is not allowed. For example, I'll throw important and required, only access the test task database in Notion. Return a message saying you don't have access to any other database if any other database or information is requested. Now, technically, you could probably prompt around this at some point. I am not an expert at malicious prompting, but I'm assuming there's the ability to get around this still. So we'll cover a couple more layers, but this one is kind of the quickest, fastest, easiest. You could list these databases out. So maybe you only have specific databases that you want access to, just to confirm that only the ones that you want to give the AI agent access to ultimately have access. Let's try our prompt again of saying, show me the financial data. So show me all the financials and see what happened. All right, let's see if we actually get financial data. We got a new message. Perfect. This message is exactly what we want. So I don't have access to the financials database. I can only access the test task database in Notion. So that's awesome. That's exactly what we wanted it to do. And again, I'm assuming if I say, show me all of the CRM data, list out our contacts and emails. Again, this one should be in our private space, test CRM here. And we should get a message back saying, hey, we don't have access to that. We only have access to our test tasks database. And what do we get? Exactly what we're hoping for. I do not have access to any other database. I can only access the test database. So that's pretty much layer one. So that's kind of the easiest one to throw in. And most likely it's going to protect you against a good amount of any type of sort of encapsulation, so you don't have leaks of data. However, you will ultimately want to take it further. So each tool is going to have a different access configuration, and you want to, at a minimum, ensure that you spend the time to configure the access correctly. So if you look at Notion setup, and again, I have the video I already created that I walked through all this, but if you look at Notion's page for the integration that I created, you can see that I gave it access just to the full test team space. I wasn't purposefully trying to protect any data, but I would want to make sure if I was going to move this into production or give this to our team, I would want to ensure that I run through the test team home space and see what it has access to. So you can also see which ones manually were selected. So the team home space is the sort of has the broadest blast radius, but I can also see that I manually gave access to each one of these pages. So we want to ensure that each one of these pages is pulled out. So Notion specifically, we would just need to pull these, private pages out of the team workspace, make sure they're in some type of private location, private team space. But this is a super important step to understand the tool you're using, the MCP server, and how it gives access. Not all of them do this. So you want to ensure that you understand what you're working with when you're messing with your MCP server. Now, the next level, I would include something called a dispatcher. It would be much more advanced, but you're ultimately checking and confirming that the data going into the AI agent and coming out of the AI agent is approved. And you would do that by structuring all of the data that passes between the modules, and the modules would then confirm and say, is the action, tasks included? Is the action financials included? If it is, don't go that way and reject this request. And then the final piece is ultimately, if you are worried about MCP having too large of a blast radius, too much access, you can always stick with breaking out each task into their own. Like we've been doing it for a long time now with AI and having these modules have individual sort of encapsulated access. So this is innate in, but this would be the same idea. You have your AI agent building out the tasks within Notion. So I have an AI agent that can create a task. It can append numbered lists. It can build out a page, like a pin bulleted list. Like it has all these tools that the AI agent has access to. You can't actually do this in Make today, but this is something that N8N is making possible. And I'm assuming Make.com will catch up at some point. So what this does, I have given each one of these tasks specific access to what it is allowed to do, and then the AI agent can pick from it. If this would just be one tool that's the server, it would ultimately make it the massive blast radius. And within this piece, I've encapsulated each one of the tasks and given it access to only the one thing it's allowed to do. And the AI agent then does not have access to anything else, and you can't prompt around it. It literally is locked down with the API and the API keys to that specific task. And finally, you want to make sure that you're logging everything. You can always review the logs and see what the AI agent has done. You could even technically write an AI agent to review the AI agent's logs if you wanted to. It would be reactive, not proactive, but you could at least identify if you have any leaks in your access to your MCP server. So it might trigger and say, hey, someone asked about financial data, and the response was, here's the financial data. And you would review the logs after the fact, and you would see that it had compromised and misdirected the AI agent, and you would want to ensure that you lock that down. So ultimately, MCP servers are amazing, and you should use them within your AI agent. Just be cautious with them and assume that they are still sort of in this beta stage. And each platform, like each company, is currently rolling the MCP servers out. And a lot of them are actually built by the community and open sourced. And many times, those ones you want to keep an even closer eye on with your access. So if you haven't seen it, go check out my other MCP video where I turn Slack into an AI agent within Notion and use Notion's MCP server. Hopefully, this is helpful and you're now rushing to go lock down your MCP servers. But if you found value in this, please like, subscribe, and check out my next video.